You're listening to Filling the Storehouse podcast. I'm David.
And I'm Stuart, and we want to walk with you on the journey to living the abundant life through faith, family, and freedom. Our goal is to refine our why while helping you find yours. Together, achieve our best and highest purpose. In the end, we'll drive each other to intentionally fill our storehouse. What's up, Storehouse Tribe? Hey, this is Stu, and hey, I just wanted to hit on one of the tenets of this podcast, financial freedom. David and I honestly think that the best way to get to financial freedom is through real estate investing. We've been investing in real estate for quite some time, and one of the coolest things about real estate is the relationships that we are able to create. We basically use partners on every single deal that we do, both in Milwaukee, Wisconsin for our turnkey rental company, and through some of our bigger deals. You know, we've done some stuff, some commercial properties here in Colorado where we live, and we're looking to do more. So if that's something that sounds of interest to you, we'd love to kind of tell you what we got going on, what we're doing. We're looking for more partners. We love building relationships and having, that trust with our partners and the ability to offer opportunities to invest alongside with us. If that's something of interest, hey, reach out to us. We'd love to jump on the phone. We'd love to jump on a Zoom call, tell you what we're up to. You can reach out to us through social media channels. You can hit us up on LinkedIn. You can hit us up on Facebook. Well, hit up me on Facebook. Don't hit up David. You can send us an email. You can go to our website, Storehouse 310 Turnkey, and go to the Contact Us page. Send us an email at podcast@Storehouse 310 Turnkey. Any of those options, reach out. Let's talk real estate, and we'd love to tell you what we're up to. Enjoy this episode. Most importantly, go fill your storehouse. See you. All right, so here we are on Filling the Storehouse podcast. We're like 15 minutes behind schedule, and J-Rob jumped on. He's like, I'm having some technical difficulties. I'm like, don't worry, dude. We're going to have lots of technical difficulties when David jumps on. And hey, we're 15 minutes in, and we've had lots of technical difficulties. We've had dog issues, mic issues, brain issues.
So let me just highlight a couple things to make sure that there's text of this. So it also started with Stu using his camera, which is completely unfocused, putting it up his nose basically, and so he's having technical difficulties there. Second, he preempted this entire conversation with, hey, my internet's kind of in and out. Hopefully I don't drop the entire podcast, which would be, a huge waste of everybody's time. So thank you for that, Stu. And then I also want to highlight J-Rob, not my word. He actually, because Stu's video wasn't working, said, wow, you can hear how ugly Stu is through the mic. Which I thought was really interesting. So anyhow, but great intro, Stu.
Welcome to Filling the Storehouse podcast,
where we build each other up. A very positive show.
J-Rob, it's good to see you, my friend.
Yes.
Man, how are you?
J-Rob.
Privileged to be here. Yeah, you guys are awesome.
No, man, we're excited for you, dude. What I thought was funny about his story, but J-Rob is a Navy SEAL, and he's like, yeah, I don't know why you guys have me on the show, but I haven't really lived an interesting life. I'm like, dude, the fact that you, there's a ton of interest and interesting things just in the fact that you're a SEAL, which is just a small part of who you are. I think you have a fascinating story. You have a ton of challenges. You have a very unique family story as well that we'll get into. You have a lot going on, and just the mission and the ministry that you're doing now, and all the things that you're doing that I'm trying to think of that's not interesting in your life right now. I think that would be a little bit easier, but it's pretty difficult. So dude,
in his bio,
tell us about yourself, man. We're excited.
In his bio, real fast, in his bio, he says that, leading, small groups of high performing people. And then he's leading now larger groups of people. And he said that humility and discipline are the key aspects to leading people. So I think he's showing that in true aspect of coming out here with the humility of Jake Roberts. So Jake, over to you, man. If you could give us your story. Who is the Jake Roberts?
Roberts. Any WWF fans out there?
Yeah.
Hey, thanks, guys. It really is an honor and a privilege, and I do mean that. That sometimes I wonder why I get invited to do some of these things, because when you live a life in naval special warfare, as one admiral used to put it, you serve with heroes. And I don't count myself among those, but I've seen it, and I've been around incredible courage, and yeah, it's been an honor of a lifetime. But yeah, just a little bit about me. Originally, I was born in the Bay Area. My dad was a P-3 pilot. Moved up to Vancouver, Washington when I was 5, and that's kind of where I lived out the rest of my high school days and whatnot. And then went to the academy in '97 and graduated in 2001, playing soccer all the way through. Big soccer nut, and so I know we'll get into that a little bit later. I was fortunate enough, by the skin of my teeth, get a billet to Buds with that class of 2001. Checked into Buds on 9/11, watched the planes fly through the towers, and we can all remember where we were on that day. And so I knew in that moment that things were going to be different, certainly for me. And I didn't need any more motivation to get through Buds, but there it was. The Team 5 in 2003, March 2003, the weekend after shock and awe, we started bombing Baghdad. And then 2 weeks later, I was in Kuwait, and then I was on a MH-53 Pavlo, one of 6. And that was early April. So checked into Team 5 mid-March. By early April, I was already on a helo north of Baghdad doing my first combat operation. And I was pinching myself because I didn't know how I got there. Then was forced to pick up a platoon. I would do 5 more deployments in basically 6 years, from 2003 to 2009. A few to Iraq, 1 to Afghanistan, and 1 to the Southern Philippines. But did have enough time to meet my beautiful bride, the former Miss Erin Fayak of Chico, California. And man, my priorities started shifting when that happened, And so still did another deployment, and we left San. I went to Monterey, and then our family had our first kid, Cade. And then, man, another page turned and priorities kept shifting. Moved to Guam, had our second kid, Callum. He's the pistol in the family. He was, we got to the hospital, and less than an hour later, he was out because he wanted to show the world who he was, and reigns today. And then Germany, lived there a couple of years. I was XO of a naval unit. And then it was around that time, after having been picked up for some milestone positions, that we chose to go an alternate route with our career. And I went to a reserve center in Spokane, Washington, and just was the commanding officer there. Had our third kid in Spokane, and then back down to San Diego to be the CO of SEAL Team 17, which is reserve team, and then finished up my career as a chief staff officer. And somewhere all throughout that story is more stories, and one of them is the kind of the transition story. And man, what do you do next as a dad? How do you make good decisions so you're going to be around for your family? You work so hard, you've been away, you want to be that guy for the family, you want to be for your wife. How are you going to provide things? And I just had a nagging, not a real pull towards ministry. I go to a church down here in it's called Ocean View Church in San Diego. And it's a pretty cool story. I'll try to get through it real quick, but they've got a little over 10 acres behind the church that they've been praying about for several years. And the lead pastor here, his name's Steve Boshin, had experience in sports ministry before at his church in Missouri, where they worked with Major League Baseball. They turned 1 field into 4 fields, 10 teams into 54 teams, and it was all right there on church property, all a way to like, an outreach to the community. So people come, they experience a great league where it's character first, faith-based, but character really is the high point. And then they see a church and they start asking questions about what that, one of the mottos or the phrases is, we're trying to get them across the parking lot. So he's always had that on his heart when he saw this property in San Diego. And man, I was in his Bible study group, and I knew they had tried to do some leagues in the past. It just hadn't really, then COVID hit and they just weren't able to get that traction. And so I knew what they were trying to do. And at one point I told my wife, and I only told her, I said, man, Aaron, I think probably the only thing that could keep us in San Diego, because my family's up in Vancouver, Washington still, we were thinking about retiring. And again, my wife's got some health issues. And so, man, it just makes sense. My mom and dad are fire and forget grandparents. So yeah, that's where we're moving. My brother's there, cousins, everything. Why would we stay in San Diego? But I said, Aaron, I think the only thing that could probably keep us in San Diego is if Pastor Steve asked me to lead this effort. And it was probably a week or two later, he gives me a call. He's like, hey, how about a cup of coffee, Jake? And we met on a Friday. The Thursday before we met, so we had already planned it out. I didn't exactly know what he wanted to talk about. The Thursday before we met, there was a gal from it's the Kreutz Camp Foundation, a local gal here that her husband passed away, but they did well and they just love serving the community. Man, she said, remember that conversation we had, Pastor Steve, a while back with donating money and I like what you're doing with the sports park. And Pastor Steve was like, yep. And then she goes, well, COVID's been tough. And then you could almost hear his heart dropping a little bit. And she said, and you know how we were talking about kind of the strings attached where you needed to raise some money too? He's like, yeah. She's like, well, I'm just going to give you $1 million, no strings attached. And he tells me that on Friday. And I'm like,
that's awesome.
Okay, there's something going on here. And over time, it was a wrestling match with my heart. Jake, the word Jake, the name Jacob Goody, wrestling with God, right? So that's certainly what I was doing over the course of several months. But then we got connected with this church in Phoenix, Christ Church of the Valley, who was a church that started with 600 kids, one field, one church, that has now grown into 15 sites. And they put about 20,000 kids through a sports ministry program a year. And to go see it, the guy, Harry and Nick Demos were the guys that started it. And what incredible mentorship they provided, what incredible vision that, I believe the Lord connected me with to see what was within the realm of the possible. And then, I'm sure we'll get into it a little bit more, Goody, but then it was around that time that you sent me that article, the Gospel Coalition with Coach Mills. And then I was just like, dude, that's awesome. That guy rocks. That for the audience, Coach Mills is the head basketball coach at Oral Roberts University. And they are the ones that had the Cinderella story at last year's March Madness tourney. I was inspired by that article you sent me. And then, so I cold called him basically and had a conversation with him.
I love that. I don't want to like just gloss over that. You cold called one of the most famous coaches in one of the most famous, he became, he had a history, but he became, as you said, he was the story in the NCAA tournament, which is like one of the most widely things. I loved that because you called me, we talked after that and you're like, oh yeah. So I reached out and I just gave him a call. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
You called? Like people don't realize that's like calling like, oh, I'm just going to give Mike Krzyzewski a call. Just, I'm going to dial the front office of Duke and just see if I could get him. Like, I love that story, but anyways, go on, please.
Yeah. Well, the cool thing was that, he invested in me and again, this is another rabbit hole, but you guys and anybody in the sure who's ever been a part of an athletic team remembers some of those coaches, just like you remember some of those teachers. And so what he did with me that day is just what he does with his athletes. You know, he just poured a little bit of investment into me. And he told me the story where he was in business. He loved the game of basketball. And he just felt like the Lord was pulling on him to really jump into basketball and be that fatherly figure that he felt kids in the inner city where he grew up. He prayed a prayer one night. He just said, Lord, you know my heart. And he prayed that prayer, and then the phone rang, and it was an offer of not nothing huge, but it was something that was going to get he and his wife through the next step. And it was such a testimony to me on how the Lord works in our lives, that it doesn't always work where he gives you everything, but he gives you what you need, gives you enough. And so I was like, you know, I was inspired by that. And so I prayed that prayer too. I was like, Lord, you know my heart. And pretty soon thereafter, I called up Pastor Steve and said, all right, I'm in. So that's why I'm here. I'm the Ocean View Sports Park Director. So we've got, again, over 10 acres that we're trying to develop. We're using that $1 million donation to build out phase 1, which is going to be an arena out the field. And we've started up a sports ministry that we're calling Waves. And the acronym is Winning a Victory of Eternal Significance. And shirts are coming, so I'm going to get you guys some swag soon. But
Nice.
so it's like, it's kind of two hats. Ocean View Sports Park, trying to develop that to be something that for the community, a place, it's a venue where people can come. And then the program is Waves that can be scaled however the Lord wants to bless it. But that's like the sports league is Waves. So here we are.
Dude, I've been talking, so I want to turn over to you for a question. But man,
That's kind of
J Rob,
but it's all good.
I'll just tell you, man, there's so much there, and like I'm like sitting here taking notes, changing pens out because pens aren't working for me, and I'll tell you, dude, you know, one of the things though that or old school technical difficulties. But before we go on, I love, and we're going to touch on this topic again and again, especially with you, is the intentionality of all these things, like the prioritization, reprioritization, and the intentionality. And because I think a lot of people would be afraid to take the steps, you know, to reach out to call a D1 coach, you know, especially after he's, you know, hit the pinnacle of sports. And I love all of it. But Stu, over to you for what I'm sure is a very insightful, excellent question.
It's gonna be an amazing question. I mean, J Rob, dude, I'm also inspired by just your story in general. But you know, going through like 21 years of naval service and being in the SEAL teams, and you know, pushing like the human condition to like the utmost, like almost impossible kind of achievements, right? Like, and you seeing this elite group of people just, you know, always performing at a high level. And I'm curious how you take that and then go put that into, you know, young kids playing soccer and spreading the word of Jesus through that. You know what I'm saying? Like how do you take something like such an elite group like that and then use that to do what you're doing now?
Yeah. Thanks, Stu. So we call them goals of the program. We have 3 goals, and they're basically guardrails, values, kind of whatever you want to call them, but we kind of go with the theme goals, right?
Yeah.
Character, competition, and community.
Hmm.
So when I think of your question, I think of competition.
Yeah.
Because I do understand what it's like to honestly pursues excellence. I totally get that. And now I'm in a recreational league where you don't see, you know, top-notch soccer and maybe people aren't showing up on time for practice and things, like kids aren't showing up on time for practice, or maybe they're not focused on listening to the coach and doing the drill as prescribed. So how do I make I reconcile those two things? Because I have done the Navy with incredible high performing dudes. And then how do I bring that into this new arena? And I would say it's the competition. What can I be doing every day in my life to pursue excellence and bring in an incredible product? So how am I investing in my coaches? How am I building the team of volunteers? How with them? How do the uniforms look? How am I coordinating that? Are the uniforms going to be on time? What kind of events am I planning to build momentum? How am I advertising? How am I working with the staff and building out synchronization meetings or something like that, which a church staff is not used to doing? So, and then we get billboards up, we get Facebook ads, we get Instagram going, we get public school flyers through Peach Jar. So you still can bring the same mentality into whatever environment you're in, but you have to do it with grace. That's for sure. Because now I'm in a world where it's not a bunch of alpha males like pit bulls, sled dogs, just like I don't even have to whip, they're just going, So it's a little bit different. I do it with a ton of grace, a ton of humility. God's got me here. My pastor here calls it God. And my favorite quote on humility is, it's not about thinking less of yourself, it's about thinking of yourself less. And you've probably heard me say that. It's C.S. Lewis. And C.S. Lewis also goes on to say, perfect humility dispenses with modesty. So, and that's because have confidence. Like, God gave you these gifts. God built me the way he is. God there, and we're here. Even though I don't think hey, I got confidence, so I'm going to show up for podcasts. You know what I'm saying? So I would say you bring all those things and with grace and humility, and you just go. I hope that answers the question.
That's an awesome answer, dude. I love that, because I think sometimes we, that again, the intentionality of that is we bring our excellence to whatever the situation is. I think a lot of times you see this in teams all the time, but you live up to your competition, or you live up to, or you play down to, and I'm not saying, sense that the folks you're working with but it's a different level, right? Like the organization, the discipline, all the stuff, it is a different level. And I think, like you said, to spell with modesty, the Navy Special Warfare community is elite. It is full of, we just had a SEAL on, I think the show that just went out yesterday, a classmate of ours, Pat, he talked about how their class started with, like, I don't know, I can't remember the numbers. It was crazy people, and 100 or 203
like
or 210 of those, 50, and then like 235 of those people rang the, like 17 people graduate, like something, and which you're very clearly familiar with, but I think when you come from that and you bring that level of intensity, but grace added in to kind of level the field a little bit, I think you're bringing up everybody else around you. And I think it's amazing to do that, right? I think a lot of times I think back to like school, where it, especially on sports teams, like, oh, how'd you do on the test? Oh man, I barely passed. And like, that's cool, right? Like, mediocrity is cool. Like the guy that's like, hey man, I aced it, I smoked it. And they're like, oh, you're a nerd, whatever. But it's having the confidence to rise above the expectations and the cool factor to be that A game. And I love that, dude. I love how you bring that. And I know your team is benefiting from it. I know they're benefiting from it. Not only in the lessons of grace, but dude, when we talk, you're with SEALs, like you're always trying to impress them. Like, it's just natural, because the level that that they're at, right? And you kind of look like a dork, a lot of time. Well, Stu does, right? He looks like a dork. He's like, oh, I could do push-ups. No, you can't, dude. Shut up. But I think to be able to also bring that grace into there and to raise a team up is such a beautiful illustration. And question, why what is it about sports that is so powerful not only in, from the perspective of being the lead, basically running sports for the church, you're also ingraining or being integrated into the staff and impacting them. But there's also the use of sports as a ministry. And I'm just curious, why is it so powerful? Why does it transcend all these barriers?
Yeah, I definitely want to get to that. But first on the grace thing, I also got to make sure that I let you guys know, and the audience. I mean, there's been a ton of grace extended to me as a guy coming in, the new guy, full of energy, not knowing how systems work, how the backside of church works. And they've just been incredible with me. And so I just want to make sure that goes both ways. In terms of the sports thing, I mean, I just, I got to talk from personal experience, and I know you guys too. There's just something about that brings out the best and the worst of you. And it teaches just life lessons to these kids. I remember with my oldest kid, and the first time he got scored on, he lost his mind. He absolutely lost his mind. And so it's like from that day forward, it's like, I remember being in that moment. I'm like, Cade, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to respond? Are you going to continue to throw the fit that you're throwing? He was 4. It's like, how do you talk to a 4-year-old about throwing a fit after getting scored on? But somehow, some way, I don't know how we were able to I was able to get the message across, but he understood that, and he turned around, got the ball, dribbled it through the other team, and scored his first goal. And then in that moment, I was able to be like, Cade, that is the way you respond, bud. Great work. And so there's just so many of those, so many life lessons. And that you guys all know, anybody in the audience, you guys totally know. And so I guess I would say that's, kind of baseline with sports, and why I think those are important, why I think it's such a huge part of our American culture. America loves a winner. So, I mean, sports is an easy way to measure this. But when you start thinking about now, man, there's so many parallels and so much you can get through that sport. Sorry, I think my batteries. Can you guys hear me? So when we talk about winning a victory of eternal significance in the Waves program, we're reframing winning. Goody, one of the things that we talked about yesterday was kids play sports. And there's a study done a handful of years ago, and they asked these kids, why? They said, number one reason, everybody in the audience already knows, to have fun. Okay, got it. Well, what does fun mean to you? They asked the kids the second question. 81 different reasons or ways that kids described how they have fun. And guess where winning was on that list? 48th. The top 3 things were kids actually want to come and work hard. They want they want a positive coach. Has nothing with what sport you're playing, has everything to do with the environment that you create. And so in that way, what an incredible model that you have as a coach, an authority figure to represent the love of Jesus Christ to these kids. And you don't even have to say the word Jesus, but they see what that model is like, because, I believe, you guys believe, that every single human being on this planet Earth is created in his image. And so there's something planted on their hearts that sees what it's like to love unconditionally, see what it's like to come prepared, to see what it's like to have a bit of a commanding presence, but also to see what it's also see what it's like to invest in kids through how to learn a sport. so that they're thinking through how to be resilient. And then there's a church across the parking lot, so
I love that goal. Get them across the parking lot. Yeah. Hey, J Rob, I love that. And I think you hit on a great point as well, is there are lessons in sports and there's things that the kids expect. And I think we as adults, we lose that. And what condition that as we get older, it doesn't matter unless you win, or, if you're not performing, if you're not the top on the team, or we do all these weird things as parents to like set our kids up to whether it's holding them back a grade so that they can be better than their, peers, and the reasoning behind that stuff it varies, right? I'm not saying that's good or bad inherently, but I think we lose sight of the resilience that you gain, of the teamwork that you gain, of impact of a good coach on your life that you gain. So many things. And I just love that, the picture that you just painted, because I think we as parents lose sight of that. And I think we also lose sight of, I think that one of the most damaging things we do is give everybody a trophy. And it's not this whole millennial generational debate thing. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the fact that there is power in knowing that you lost and can get better to do something about it. And to get a trophy, that's what I love about wrestling. Dude, it is absolutely 1000% no ambiguity. Like one dude's hand is raised, one dude's hand is raised, and the other one stays down. Mm-hmm. And it is visceral, and there's no way around that. You can't get a trophy for that. But I think we lose sight of the true power of sports and allowing our children to lose and allowing them to have these lessons, and then also graciously, because we're losing that ability and to have the humility to not, talk and badmouth, all that kind of stuff. So I think that's a great analogy for life and then business as well, right? Like Stu and I can attest, Stu, preach on it. Like our businesses are not all successful. We don't always win, but I'll tell you, the lessons in the losses are more important and more powerful than the lessons in the victories.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, amen. I think you hit it out of the park there. I mean, if you want to win at something, or if you want a certain result and you don't achieve that result, then what are you going to do to adapt and overcome and get on the path that you want to get on in order to achieve that result? And yeah, sports is a great way to teach kids what that feels like and what needs to change in their behavior, change in their routine in order to make that team. I remember one of the most powerful moments in my life for my first soccer team. And it being cut from my first soccer team I was able to play at a somewhat elite level. I mean, I played D1 college, but the cool thing was I got to kind of be in the same sphere with people that you saw playing on the World Cup. And I was, passing the ball to them and just watching them go. But it was because I got cut from that first soccer team that made me realize, okay.
It kind of makes me want to get involved with, like some team sports again, like as an adult. Like I actually have like on my vision to, to do something I haven't done before. I mean, I played soccer as a kid, but I think it'd be super fun to go play, an adult league soccer team. And just, I mean, I'm going to suck, but it'd still be a lot of fun to go play and get beat up and get beat and have that team camaraderie again. Cause I think as we get older, we start to lose that. We start to miss out on that a lot. So, and I think also like, it'd be cool for, your kids to come, to watch you as an adult go and play and have fun and get defeated and get beat up. And so it's on my list of to-do items once I'm healed with my shoulder here. I keep on using this thing as an excuse, but I'll get there someday.
And the good thing about your kids, Stu, is that what's naturally built into you is the fact, right? Like, and I think it's for your children to see like how constantly just get like the tar kicked out of him, and then come back for more and like never win, but still be gracious about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's beautiful.
You're funny. You're so funny. J Rob, what speaking of like the Waves program and the church, like what's needed right now? Like what do you guys need? Maybe someone in our audience, someone listening, like could help. Like what is needed right now for to get this program like really off and running and growing?
Yeah, I would say first and foremost is prayer for city permits. We've been waiting on those for several months now to actually start breaking ground. I mean, the construction firm's ready to go. Man, money's in place, materials. We just can't get the city permits, and it's a relationship God thing. So I would say first and foremost, and then what we see, and then I would just say continuing to build momentum, not only in terms of a volunteer base, but also developing out the rest of the sports park, which we've started. It's a campaign, trying ways to generate funds to do that. What we've seen so far with the energy and the desire with the location that we have, man, get some sports lighting up there, and this thing is gonna just explode, not only in terms of a sports program, could be multi-sport, but also, again, as I was talking earlier, a couple different hats. One's the Waves, and the other is the sports park itself. How can that be a beacon for and if we can continue to make progress in developing this sports park out, and we're talking, Christian concerts, we're talking job fair, whatever, some sort of public-private partnership, South Bay San Diego invitationals, I mean, there's so much potential for people to drive, start asking questions. Championship football game. So just developing out that sports park, I think is I'm going to keep, whirling the dervish of Waves, and that's going to be incredible because that's impacting lives, and that's where the focus needs to be. But I think in terms of need and things that are outside our span of control, mostly it's how do we develop, the sports park out.
Now, do you guys actively have, I mean, we can, I'd love to, be advertising and pushing stuff for you guys, but do you guys have is there an actively ongoing, giving and fundraising and all the campaigns to really get this thing, as you guys continue to develop and need resources, continuing that ball rolling?
I would say it's active to the point that they've brought me on board, and it's active to the point that we have one website dedicated to the sports park itself, and a separate 501c3 called the Ocean View Community Foundation they've established. But we haven't really gone through next steps in terms of coming up with a timeline of events, a sequence of events to really strategize around how we develop it. So to the degree of time that I have available, I've applied for grants. I'm continuing to apply for grants. Example, I know that there's some Chick-fil-A has actually sponsored a couple arena fields in the area. U.S. Soccer will partner with an organization to help out with sports lighting and help out with arena fields. So I'm pursuing those things as time allows, but it's not like it's not a big organized campaign at this point.
What about I know you had mentioned to us before, just like things like soccer cleats for kids and uniforms and shin guards and coaches and volunteers. Like I'm assuming, some of that stuff is highly needed as well, correct?
It is. I mean, the area, the South Bay San Diego area is often said it's kind of the forgotten about part of San Diego.
Yeah.
About 30, I think over 30% of people in South Bay San Diego do not have their high school degree equivalent. About 40% are living in economic hardship, which about 20% of that category is actually below the poverty line. And then there's almost 40% of families are in a single parent environment. So moms and dads, you know the deal. I mean, can you imagine leading your family without your wife? Nope. So how do we help out those moms, help out those dads? They're just trying to make and trying to find a place for their son or daughter to come that they know is a good, positive, and safe environment. Because they can't afford cleats. To your point, they can't afford the cleats, they can't afford the shin guards. So fortunately, people have been donating. Some of those things have been coming in. People have been donating money for scholarships. We've been able to hand out a handful of scholarships for the season already. Registration price point is about 20 or 30 bucks cheaper than the thing in the area. So I think the YMCA is always the cheapest option, and we're coming under that by 20 or 30 bucks. And so that's a goal of the program, is to make it accessible for people. And here's the deal too, with the scholarship, man, we don't ask for financial statements. We don't ask for any of that, because we think that if you're willing to humble yourself enough and reach out to me, say, hey, I'm just having a hard time, but we love what you're doing. We want our kid to be a part of something. Then I have that conversation with you. I say, okay, what is it you think you can do? And then we go from there, and that's it. And nobody has abused that up to this point. So yeah, there's absolutely a need. And I have that, I have the way to direct that, but it's important. It's a tough area, but man, we're seeing God on the move here. And so it's exciting,
Yeah, man.
I think it's crazy. It just seems like I was talking to you yesterday. Well, we were talking yesterday, but it seems like just yesterday that you're like, oh, I'm really struggling with, what I'm going to do if I'm going to go into this church thing. And now you're like, yeah, man, I'm dealing with the this and the that and the staff and the dude. I love it. Like you've just completely, like you look completely comfortable and right at home. Not comfortable in a way that is not stretching you. That is very clear. You're being stretched, but I love it, man. This is it looks like a calling. So I just wanted to highlight that, because it's just striking me as you're talking through all these things that you're developing. I'm like, man, this guy's taking the reins and gone full bore. Hey, I also, before we I don't want to, there's another thing that you're super passionate about for obvious reasons. And I don't want to miss out on the opportunity to bring awareness to, to donors and the medical issues that you guys are currently in the midst of. And I just want to bring some awareness to that. And if you don't mind just touching on your story a little bit, and then how we collectively can support and be more aware of this very real problem.
Yeah, thanks, Goody. It's one of those things that always touches my heart. Of course, it's very close to me. My wife was diagnosed with a terminal liver disease back in December 2018. And she is on the liver transplantation list. Since 2018, our life has been, her health has degraded over time. It was pretty crazy there in December. She had a biopsy, and we were in and out of the ER like 3 different times during that Christmas season. She looked like a Simpson character at one point. She turned so yellow, and it's heart-wrenching when you see someone you love so much just not able to find any comfort at all whatsoever. And there's nothing, as men, there's nothing that you can do. And that's like when you feel like that's probably some of the worst times, if you ever remember back in your life, when you have an inability to take action and fix something, man, it just drives you crazy. And so that's been the lesson that I've been learning over time, over and over again, along with kind of suffering and why and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, that was one of the things that I guess I should just describe what it is. So the liver disease is called primary biliary cholangitis. And what PBC is it's some sort of gene in her gut got altered, and they think it's usually through some sort of infection, and it mutates a gene, and they don't know why, and they don't know where exactly the gene is, but it messes with the bile ducts in the liver, and it creates an inflammation to the point where those bile ducts cease to work. They can become so inflamed and they close up. And then that final stage 3, early stage 4 scarring. And they used to think that before it was diagnosed as PBC, they used to just think it was people that were alcoholics would come in. And so they didn't really give it attention for a number of years because they just chalked it up to people with bad behavior. So that's not the case, thankfully, anymore. And there's medicine that she takes that helps prolong her life, essentially. But now we're in the process. One of the crazy aha God moment things was, as we talked about that transition point to step into sports ministry, around that same point in time with University of California, San Diego, who happens to have a living liver donor department, decided that they were going to put her on the transplant list and that she was going to become a candidate all around the same time. And so it was just like, and there's only a handful of those departments around the country, and there's not one back in the Northwest. So it's like, man, okay, we're going to say yes. We're going to say, this is where you want us. I'm going to stop wrestling with you, and I'm going to say yes. And so since then, we've been through 3 donors. I've gone through the final stages of testing. They haven't been found suitable, and it's this roller coaster ride where you get up for it, you get excited, you're praying nonstop, and it doesn't work out, and you just kind of got to rebaseline yourself and keep one step forward, just like getting through Hell Week, one step at a time. The blessing has been how we essentially to the hospital staff through this, how the hospital staff now is at this point where they're like, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. You know, we are full of people right now. We can't handle as many people that have stepped forward to volunteer and be a living donor. And we're excited to meet. Saying this, we're excited for this because we've never seen this many people step forward, and we just know what a special lady my wife is. So yeah, sorry, she is amazing. We've definitely had our lows, and but man, she's determined to be an incredible wife and mom. And so we're still grateful, we're thankful, and we know it's going to one of the latest developments is with Pittsburgh Medical Center. They're going to actually they do way more surgeries a year with the actual living donor for the liver. And they think some of the disqualifiers that happened at UCSD, they've done some next level stuff with vascular reconstruction of the liver. And so they're going to take a look at and review some of the imaging. So we're hopeful that it's going to happen soon. But thanks for.
Yeah, man, I think both Stu and I are hesitant to come off mute because which one of us could talk through tears better?
Yeah.
I think from
Sorry about
experience.
that.
No, dude.
I love it about my wife, you know.
No, I love it, man. And that's why I wanted to bring it up, because I think, you know, we have a small group of dudes that we are working with and hang out with, and really, and I love the vulnerability, but also like just the speaking the power of the truth of the situation and people understanding. And then just I mean, dude, it's your wife, man. You love your wife and your family, and this is real life, you know? And I think, and who knows, man, I put it in God's hand, but who knows, maybe from our listeners, there's opportunities that just talking about it and bringing awareness. Cause I'll be honest, I became friend, like completely unaware of, I probably would have been a person that made an assumption about liver disease, you know, 8 months ago, a year ago, but it's just, I think it's really powerful just to talk about and to understand, man, real life is tough, dude. There's so many things that we can't account for. There's so many things that we put our faith in God to help us with. And there's people that care. And I love the fact that the surgeons are excited to meet your wife because of the outpouring of love and support for you guys, because of the people that you are and the impact that you guys make. So I just, man, I will continue to keep Aaron and your family in our prayers, and just claiming in faith that this is gonna, you know, that it's gonna move forward and it's gonna be awesome, man. So I appreciate you sharing, and thank you for continuing to make me more aware and bring awareness to these things, because you never know, and it can, the more you understand and know these, at least exposed when it happens, maybe have friends as well, and at least now you know there's action steps that can be taken. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, man. And the reason you don't know that, or you didn't know that right away, and a lot of people don't, and I'm not, you know, I'm just now kind of becoming more comfortable talking about it, is because, you know, like with Paul in the Bible, you know, he didn't want his story to be about his thorn in the flesh, and we don't want that either. But it is something that we're going through. It is part of life, and people do want to pray, and we do want to get this fixed. So again, it's not meant to be the focus. Life, just like you said, life is hard. But man, it's still been, I hesitate to say this, but there's still so many blessings that have come through it that we are so thankful for. So just want to make sure that I hit that point.
Dude, I'm still trying to wipe my tears away here, but man, Dave and I feel incredibly honored and blessed, you know, to be friends with you, to be within your network, and to you know, hold each other, you know, lift each other up, and hold each other accountable to being better men. And so thank you for that, man. We're going to put all of your links in our show notes. You know, guys and gals, reach out to Jake. If this is something that speaks to you, if you guys are in San Diego, if you're in Southern California, hey, let's get this, you know, let's get waves rocking and rolling. Let's get this this whole sports complex going, and let's make a difference. I love it, Jake.
Amen.
Yeah, just remember, Jake, as you continue to grow and influence in San Diego and are big baller, just remember the first podcast that you were on. Okay.
That's right. Case of beer for you guys for sure.
And a Waves t-shirt.
And a Waves t-shirt. That's coming. It's coming.
Sweet.
All right, guys and gals. Hey, please, you know, share this. You know, take a screenshot. You know, post it on social medias. Give us some 5-star reviews. Reach out to Jake, and hey, most importantly, go fill your storehouse.
Yeah, thank you. Make it a great day, friends. It was awesome. Thank you, J Rob. We love you, brother.
You
And
bet. Love
man,
you guys.
it's awesome. Thank you. See ya. See ya. Thanks for listening to Filling the Storehouse. If you enjoyed our show, please subscribe and share it with someone you love. And if you really felt inspired, leave a 5-star review so we could continue to grow and help other Christian entrepreneurs build their storehouse. If you're interested in creating financial freedom through real estate investing, be sure to check out our website at storehouse310turnkey.com. We'd love to serve you through our platform of building the kingdom. Just click on the contact link and we'll reply to you as soon as we can. Again, thanks so much for listening. Now go fill your storehouse and make it a great day.